Hi, this is Wade Millward, and this is CRN In-Depth, where we speak with a CRN reporter about what they're working on. Joining me today is Dylan Martin. He's been following all the chip news this week. Dylan, I know everyone's probably watching the Nvidia news, but actually, I'll throw you a curveball. Let's start with non-Nvidia news. Tell me what else you're watching this week in semiconductors.
Yeah, so obviously it just feels like we're seeing like AI chip news every week. Qualcomm announced basically two new AI chips that they plan to release in 2026 and 2027, in some way going up against Nvidia for AI infrastructure. They are pitching their chips as more energy efficient. We don't have any specs of any kind, so we actually don't know how they measure up to Nvidia's chips. But Qualcomm has made AI chips in the past, but this is probably the most serious Qualcomm has sounded about competing against NVIDIA. So they're called the Qualcomm AI 200 and AI 250. Important thing for the channel to note is that Qualcomm is building a commercial partner program for its Snapdragon X chips for PCs. It's fair to expect that these AI chips for data centers will find their way into the channel. AMD announced that it sold the manufacturing unit of its ZT Systems acquisition. So it acquired this server designer and manufacturer called ZT Systems earlier this year. It acquired that company mainly to get the design capabilities so that they can build these really advanced AI systems that can go toe-to-toe with the ones that NVIDIA is building. AMD didn't need the manufacturing capabilities. They're getting rid of the manufacturing arm that they didn't need because they're mainly in the design business.
I'm glad you talked about that, Dylan, because Qualcomm especially has been fascinating. I follow the Microsoft ecosystem for CRN, and they really early on Copilot Plus being the chip to power those computers ahead of Intel. Qualcomm's making some moves, so to see them now go up against NVIDIA at this layer is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, yes. They're competing against NVIDIA in PCs. They're definitely not anywhere close to the capabilities, but they're getting there. This is very early innings for Qualcomm.
Now we'll shift over to NVIDIA, GTC, a lot of news coming at us. What are you focused on? What should the channel focus on? Help us pay attention, Dylan.
We did see a lot of new partnerships and we did see some new products. One of the big ones was a kind of an increased push into the telecom industry. They announced a new computer called the Arc Pro. So it's basically a computer that can handle all of the network traffic for cellular networks in a better way. And basically, NVIDIA is saying it can use its AI chips or GPUs to run a lot of network workloads faster so people can have better experiences with all these AI things that they're interacting with. So the first company to buy into this is Nokia. They're basically going to be using NVIDIA's Arc Pro computer to work on this transition from 5G to 6G. The US subsidiary of T-Mobile is going to be testing this out with Nokia and NVIDIA. We also learned more details about what is called the Bluefield 4 DPU data processing unit. So this has started to become a normal component in a lot of AI systems that NVIDIA is putting out. Imagine all the other workloads you need to run a data center, but it's not like the central AI workloads. The DPU isn't running ChatGPT, for instance, but it is running more administrative or security or storage workloads that are important, but they're not running on the GPU and they're not running on the CPU. And so the Bluefield DPU offloads a lot of that work from the CPU to free up the CPU for more important work. And it also has enhanced capabilities for storage and networking and security. So you actually see a lot of companies of different types working with NVIDIA to take advantage of the DPUs. Bluefield 4 is just going to be a lot faster than the previous iteration, I believe 6 times faster. NVIDIA is in the leadership position for AI infrastructure, and it's just further embedding itself into the broader tech ecosystem for anything ranging from telecom to manufacturing to autonomous driving. There was an announcement with Uber for robo-taxis. They're just at the top of their game still and further embedding themselves into the broader ecosystem, and that will show up in the channel in various ways, whether it's hardware that the channel sells or services or applications. NVIDIA does have an invite-only partner program, but then there are other companies like CrowdStrike, etc., who take advantage of NVIDIA technology, and then they provide that technology for the channel to sell through its own program. So it's just, NVIDIA is going to show up in various ways in the channel.
I should also note this week, NVIDIA passed $5 trillion in valuation, first time, for any company in history. It's clearly being recognized as a front runner in our new AI world.
Hitting the $5 trillion valuation just speaks to how powerful and how foundational it has become. There's obviously a lot of bullishness in the market overall about where AI is headed, even though we, are seeing more conversations about whether we're in a bubble. I believe Jensen Huang said this week that he doesn't think we are. As of right now, all the excitement and investment around NVIDIA and all the companies it's partnering with just shows that this mania is still very much a mania.
The CPUs showing up, maybe that's just a way to be cost effective, but maybe we are starting to see this balancing of, okay, here's where I can get away with a CPU, here's where I need the NPU, Curious if you had takeaways there.
There's this idea called heterogeneous computing. You can't just rely on a single processor type to handle all workloads. A lot of workloads have moved to the GPU, but as NVIDIA has demonstrated, it's not just the CPU or the GPU. You also have now a data processing unit that replaced, in some instances, a network interface card, which have their own chips for processing networking traffic. The Bluefield DPU has what NVIDIA calls a super NIC, super network interface card in it. It's somewhat recursive in some ways, but NVIDIA has definitely defined what we know as accelerated computing, providing computing power that's way faster than just a normal CPU. And so you do see AMD, for instance, providing somewhat similar configurations and way of thinking about systems. One of the questions around NVIDIA is that a lot of its stuff is proprietary to some extent. NVIDIA software runs on NVIDIA GPUs. They do have some open source things, but I believe AMD and Intel are working on more open standards for what you can run on GPUs. But NVIDIA has kind of defined the market. And so it's up to other companies to see whether they want to play with NVIDIA to a certain extent, which you are seeing with companies like Intel. But then they also see opportunity to provide an alternative, because if it's just one company doing everything, then that's a lot of power. And, there's a question of, is that too much power?
Yeah. Hey, well, on that note, that'll do it for this episode of In Depth. Dylan, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, good talking.
More on NVIDIA, more on the semiconductors market, visit CRN.com and check out our YouTube channel. Thanks.